welcome to Skyrim Guide to Eternal Paralyzes. Well, almost. This is a Skyrim Battlemage build focused on paralyzes and other similar effects like freezing your enemies solid, engulfing them with ash, and generally making them unable to stand and fight. All that while also being a badass warrior and an incredible tank. In its complete state, this build decimates legions of bandits with no real fear of death, and everything he does makes people paralyzed. He strikes with Children, which has a chance of paralyzing. He has the paralyze spell in his left hand. When people hit him, there's a chance they get paralyzed, and if that's not enough, he freezes them with Frost Breath or Frost Cloak. Also, Paralyzing Strike is one of his perks, because why the hell not? Story-wise, I think of him as a son of the Witchman of the High Rock. Something in his dreams was always drawing him to Skyrim, however. He was fascinated by the stories of Azidal and Shalidor, the great Nordic mages of old. He embarked on his long journey to this ancient land as soon as he reached adulthood, and remained there ever since, searching for ancient artifacts and spells. The rumor of the long-lost tomb of Azidal being excavated in Solstheim will soon reach his ears. Going back to the more gamey details, you should stick with the following attribute ratio. A very careful and min-maxing player could probably forego Magicka entirely for even more health, as our standing stone will tie your Magicka management to the amount of kills, and with Savos Iron Amulet and the Ring of Peerless Magicka, you should have just enough Magicka for a Cloak and a Rune spell before you round out of the blue. And it may be annoying to handle early games, so I strongly suggest to have at least 5 levels invested in base Magicka value. And for the standing stone, we will take the Atronach this time. This is my favorite stone in Andromeda just because it changes the way you play a Battlemage character so much. You now have to be a bit smart about your combat decisions, but if you manage to keep killing your enemies, you will have some Magicka at hand at all times. It also encourages a Battlemage to face his enemies openly, and preferably many of them at the same time. Hence the heavy use of cloak spells here, because they are just great for crowded battles. Also, the low Magicka issue becomes much less of an issue when the cost of all your spells is halved and the effectiveness is increased by 25%. As for the race, the Breton is the most logical choice, as we will use a lot of alteration and invest in it quite heavily, so your natural magic resistance combined with appropriate alteration perks will make you the bane of spellcasters. On the top of that, you will also be able to absorb Magicka through your ward spells, so mages will never pose any danger to you. The following skills will be your main ones. Heavy armor is of high priority and very easy to handle. Just take every perk there is as soon as possible. The Reflect Blows perk will be particularly cheesy with the Azidal's armor of attribution, as the enemies hitting you in melee will have a chance to be both damaged and paralyzed with no effort on your end. In one-handed, take all the perks in the middle, including all 5 ranks of Armsman. And yeah, let's include the Paralyzing Strike this time as well, just for lols. And the Bladesman perks will increase your damage per second slightly, and it may be a good idea for this one to have this little bonus to DPS, as we will have no item slot free for a Fortify one-handed enchantment. And to round up your combat abilities, you take a few perks in smithing, namely the left-hand side up to glass smithing, which will cover both your weapons and armor. And of course the arcane blacksmith perk, because all of your key items are pre-enchanted. With your smithing maxed out, a full set of Azidal's armor and the blacksmith elixir, you will be approaching the armor cap for shieldless characters. Considering your high health and your restoration spells, the chance of you dying is near 0. Speaking of restoration, take the cost-reducing perks there up to the Adept Restoration. Regeneration and Ward Absorb will be useful as well. At the cost of 6 perk points, you will increase your durability to great effect. You will be healing a lot of HP with Close Wound spell, and in fact you don't need any healing spell beyond that one. You will also regain stamina with that spell, which is great for power attacks and sprinting, and generally a great choice for all battle mages, crusaders and clerics of Skyrim. And your Ward Absorb perk combined with Azidal's gauntlets will give you a great advantage over mages and dragons. What is even cooler is how well does this perk combine with your Standing Stone ability. Normally the ward spells are rather expensive, hard to use for characters with small magicka pools, but the cost of your spells is reduced by 50%, remember, so you can sustain a ward for twice as long, and absorbing magicka through your buffed up wards offsets the lack of magicka regeneration. Really neat. I am really proud of myself right now. So use your wards whenever you see a dragon or an annoying necromancer. Alteration will be your most tactical skill, and the one that makes this character play like a proper warlock. Take the cost reducing perks up to expert and all the ranks of magic resistance. In the early game, before you have your magicka increased and all your armor ready to use, the Ash Shell spell will be a very useful crowd control tool. You can cast it at some annoying archers in the background, for example, to deal with the melee fighters or a boss first. It starts to be much more useful once you get the Ash Rune, which you will be able to cast at great distances to completely disrupt the tactics of your foes. And of course there is Paralyzes. Use it often, use it with a Poison Rune, use it with a Frost Cloak. You can't get wrong with Paralyzes. Finally, some perk points should be put in Destruction. You will need the cost reducing perks up to Adept, which will cover your Frost and Whirlwind Cloak spells. Then take both ranks of Augmented Frost and Deep Freeze perks, because it gives you the ability to paralyze, yes, paralyze the heavily injured foes passively with your cloak and also your Frost Breath. The Rune Master perk combined with Azidal's Helm of Vision will grant you a tremendous range for all your runes, and other than the aforementioned Ash Rune, you will go for the Poison Rune in Restoration at least. This will give you some control over the battlefield, as you will not be forced to rush towards the archers and wizards anymore. You will be able to just stand in the middle of the mayhem and cast your runes everywhere. Let's talk about your gear right now. As you can see, the full set of Azidal's armor is a very useful thing here, and most of the spells were chosen to use the bonuses provided by this armor. The best and most crucial bonus is the one from the Azidal's Armor of Retribution, especially in crowded battles when a lot of weaklings is trying to scratch you and you have your Frost Cloak on. Well man, everyone around you gets paralyzed, damaged and frozen solid all the time. Speaking of paralyzes and freezing, you will also need Chill Rend. Yeah, coincidentally it has both of these effects. It deals frost damage and has a chance to paralyze. The best level to obtain it is of course level 46, but seeing how its enchantment will be buffed by the augmented frost perk, you could probably get it earlier than that. And as mentioned, use the remaining item slots for the best magicka increasing enchantment you can possibly get your hands on. This will reduce your need to worry about magicka considerably. Speaking of magicka and magic, let's go through the list of the spells real quick. All of them will be quite useful and some combos will be possible. One of course is the Paralyze plus Poison Rune combo, which takes out the humanoid enemies very reliably and swiftly. Another is Frost Cloak plus consecutive use of Poison Runes at close distance, very useful for softening up some badass bandit leaders and other tough guys. It should be noted that the cloak spells will actually have a huge influence on your combat style. Generally speaking, in the open field it is better to use the Whirlwind Cloak, especially in the locations like Waldheim Towers when you can deal huge falling damage by this spell. You can also use it to keep the distance and use your runes for a better crowd control. But when you fight inside, especially in the narrow corridors and other tight spots, the Frost cloak will be your best friend, especially with the Deep Freeze perk unlocked. As an icing on this cake, you can use the Frost Breath Shout and or the Ice Form, because they fit the playstyle, and the Frost Breath in particular can be quite devastating with all the frost-related destruction perks. Of course, you could also spice it up with the Dragonborn Frost ability from Apocrypha, but it won't be at all necessary. Okay, so you can see the power of the Unbroken now. This is a character to charge into legions of bandits and destroy them one by one with spell and the sword and the raging fist of the orc. No, just with spell and the sword. He is absolutely powerful at any range, durable like a proper tank, extremely deadly up close, and with all that is still able to use some advanced tactics and battle planning. A true hero, this one, although I don't think he's the nicest guy in Skyrim. Anyways, hope you like this one, and maybe you will even play it. Well, that would be exciting, who knows? Maybe you already played something like this, and if so, don't hesitate to share your experiences. It was nice talking to you as always, and I hope we will see each other again. Bye bye.